I'm sweating. Like, I don't know why, but I am. I'm getting too worked up. But hair in my mouth.
Are you turning into a wereskunk?
I am.
You're like sweating on the armpits, pulling hair out of places. You turn into a wereskunk, Marie.
Let me get my strap-on nose. Hang on.
Buckle up, Marie. We're going for a bumpy, skunky ride.
You know what? You have very thick, lustrous hair, and you're like, "Oh, I'm getting old." No, it's you
It's
got a good
lustrous.
lustrous hair. You got a good head of hair for
Thank
such
you.
an old guy. No, I was
I
kidding.
know. I'm very old. I'm
You're like the
almost
baby.
as old as the actors in this movie playing teenagers.
When I first thought of making this show, Tubi Movie Challenge, the
Yeah.
very first movie that I screenshot to use on someone was this one.
Oh, really? I
Yeah,
love this
it was
segment
this one.
idea because I love watching bad movies. Unfortunately, this one was not one of them that I loved.
Okay,
But
okay,
it's such a great
we're gonna
idea.
get
It's such a great idea. I mean, because I feel like whenever people are reviewing movies or talking about movies, it's always far funnier when it's an awful movie. When it's a movie that both people loved, it's just like you just in the movie and it's just like it's not as fun as making fun of something.
didn't know what that hand movement was. I thought you were like angry, like an angry cartoon guy, like,
No.
"Hey, you whippersnapper," but it was
There were definitely some whippersnappers in this movie.
from movies to video games. Welcome to Marie Plays It All. Today's episode is another Tubi movie challenge where I waste an hour and a half of my friends' lives just for fun. But also, we watch these horrible movies so you don't have to. We're going to explain. Well, I don't know, though, because you might want to watch this one after we explain it. Right, Kev?
That's right. You're definitely gonna not want to watch it.
Or you will.
Or
I
you
don't
will.
know. You never know. Today's movie, this is the first one that I wanted to give somebody. When I asked Kevin if he'd wanted to be a victim of mine for this Tubi movie challenge, I was scrolling through all my screenshots of the ones I have, and I'm like, I gotta give him this one. I have to
Mhm.
give Kevin this one. It just suited him. I don't know why. And the movie is called I Was a Teenage Wereskunk.
That's right.
Wereskunk.
I love werewolf movies. Teen Wolf. I got Teen Wolf right here.
That's
Um,
probably why I thought of you.
and I always thought the idea of like, especially in monster movies, when somebody's turning into a monster rather than a monster coming from outer space or like coming up out of the swamp. I always liked that there was somebody who's like turning into an animal and I always loved being a werewolf. I used to do like all the prosthetics on Halloween to be a werewolf and stuff. And so I was really happy that this was the movie that you were choosing. Although I do feel like they should have changed the name from I was a teenage wereskunk to I was a teenage 40-year-old because that's what all the actors they were so old playing high schoolers.
And not only were they so old playing high schoolers, but the parents in the movie who played the parents of the high schoolers were definitely the same age, maybe even younger than some of this
Yes.
high school students.
And it's funny because I've always heard of the horrors of how bad Tubi movies were. And so I really set myself up for success yesterday. I cleaned up my whole room. I had the whole day off. I got my movie theater chairs ready and like I just to zone in and just get all of my focus. It was a nice relaxing day. So thank you for ruining that with this movie. But no, seriously, it was I did have fun starting the movie because as soon as I pressed play, something that I did like was that they were actually trying to make like a 50s monster movie, it looked like.
Thank you. Yes, this was my okay. Wait, we're gonna get into that one second. I just want to tell you
Okay.
what the synopsis of the movie is first. I gotta just
Okay.
like throw it in there because it's so ridiculous. But
Yeah.
the synopsis of the movie is a teen boy's world is upended when he's sprayed in the face by an enchanted skunk whose spell makes the teen a killer when he's sexually excited.
Yeah.
Okay, it happens when I'm feeling Randy.
Okay, and then so I want to give you just like a little bit. I want to give like some like Rotten Tomatoes ratings and like a couple of reviews that I saw. Okay, so
Okay.
first of all, there's no critic score on Rotten Tomatoes for this, but there is an audience score.
Oh, okay. That's probably
What
the
do you
people
think
who
it?
made the movie.
Well, what do you think the score is?
The audience score. I'm
Yeah,
assuming it was the people who made the movie, so I'm sure it's a fairly high score.
I think you're correct because it has a 100%
Get
audience score on Rotten
get out of
Tomatoes.
here. That's like a crew score.
I screenshot some reviews, like typed out reviews, not from Rotten Tomatoes, but from IMDb, which also
Mhm.
gave that it an 8 out of 10, an 8 out of 10, a 10 out of 10. We got here a timeless classic, 10 out of 10. The film is to cinema what Michael Jackson's Thriller is to music.
Dead? Crawling out of the grave?
That's a good one. Also, let me read this one, Kevin, because I was laughing so hard at some of the claims. This is an 8 out of 10. The scariest comedy horror movie ever made.
Zero scares.
This movie is by far the most interesting film I've ever seen. It's described as a loving homage to 1950s drive-in movies, and it surely is. It's basically like your typical horror movie, but with a skunk replacing the word werewolf. The story is very impressive. The cast is outstanding, despite some of the actors who are a lot closer to middle age than teenage. The costumes look magnificent, as well as the makeup. Skunk is, and the jokes and gags are hilarious. And if you are a fan of drive-in movies from the 50s, as well as low-budget films from that era, check this one out. Sincerely, Sandlot 1992.
Oh my
That's who
God.
wrote it.
Oh my God. That brings the Sandlot down a couple of notches for me now.
Kevin, tell me
Okay.
everything about this movie. Go through your thoughts, go through your notes from beginning to end.
All
How
right,
just tell
cool.
us about this movie. Just you have the floor. Just tell us what you want. Let's hear your feelings.
Buckle up, Marie. We're going for a bumpy, skunky ride. So yeah, like when the movie started, I was actually a little impressed because it looked like they put a little production value into it, and they
Mhm.
tried to make a 50s monster movie, which I love. I love monster movies, and I love period pieces. And something that's so hard to do in an indie film is do a different decade. And I thought, I was kind of giving them some points right away. I was like, all right, look, they're trying to build this 50s world. And I was kind of into it. I was a little impressed with the production value of that. That opening scene, like, is that classic lover's lane looking over the valley, which is like every monster movie from the 50s. Um, it was a lackluster. There was no like tension in it at all. The dialogue was just really bad, and the actors were just like I said, it wasn't I was a teenage wereskunk. I was a teenage 40-year-old. They were so old, but their acting was just awful. It was like they were just like they didn't even try.
I'm really, really frightened.
It was like they were in this fake voice of like 50s and overacting, which is like usually overacting can be fun if that overacting is good, but but it wasn't. And then at this next scene was at like the ice cream shoppy, like the 50s ice cream shop. And I feel like those two scenes were the only times that they tried to make it the 1950s.
Yes,
After
you're
that, their
right.
budget ran out, and then they just did whatever they wanted. Um,
Mhm.
and in that ice cream shop, they had that they busted out in a random musical, the only
Oh.
musical number in the entire movie, which was "The Smell of Love," which I actually thought was kind of funny. But I was just watching, I'm like, what is this?
Smell of love.
And then in that scene, they introduced another character, but he was like a 1960s like slam poetry type of character. I was like, this is the wrong decade. What is the point of this? And then him and the large cheerleader were walking home, and she's on roller skates, and I swear to God, this is like the first time this person has ever used roller skates. They made roller skating look so difficult. I was just like, why even have that in there? The classic scene of the character getting bit by a werewolf or getting sprayed by the skunk. All right. There was nothing enchanting about that skunk, by the way.
An enchanted skunk.
It was just there in a tree when he was peep tomming some girl getting changed, and it wasn't. They didn't even build up to it. It was just the skunk was there, and then it just sprayed him in the face like, and it just went away. They didn't allude to a skunk coming or anything. It was just stupid.
You could say that again.
And then the rest of the movie was just so bad. It's like this is one of the things that drives me crazy about indie movies when people don't know how to craft a good story. They're constantly introducing new characters, and it has no structure, and you just get so bored. It's one thing if you have a cohesive story with just the main characters that you need and follow a story structure, but they said nay to that and just threw that all out the window. And from there, I was just on my phone going through things, working on art, just like kind of paying attention. And the one thing I was kind of looking forward to was the transformation scene, because that's one of my favorite things about a werewolf movie is the transformation scene. They took no effort into that. They did like the old school where he was just there, and then they cut and they put the makeup on him, and then it was there.
Changes.
And it was just like, oh, come on, man, you can't have no like and just having fun. I really wish that they had fun with their special effects. Even if it looked bad, have fun with it. Try. And they didn't even do that. I mean, even in the opening scene where the guy got decapitated, I was kind of laughing. I'm like, all right, these are bad special effects. I'm kind of excited. I just wish they did more with it, which they didn't. And that was pretty much it. I couldn't really remember anything else that was happening in the movie because it was just so bad. Oh, wait. I do have one additional thing I would like to touch on. So there was this scene in the movie where him and his friend go to the movie theater and they're watching a movie on the screen, right? And they made another movie inside the movie, which I thought was way more entertaining. They made a black and white outer space monster movie called It Came from Uranus. And I was dying laughing watching that. I'm like, why can't we just make this the movie? It Came from Uranus, because that was far more entertaining, and it was just so much better. And I was so angry that wasn't the movie that we were watching.
And it was funny because the jump scare in the theater was a little tiny toot that came out of the
But seriously, I don't understand how they like their fake movie that they made for the characters to watch was far more entertaining than the movie that they made.
I wrote down that one of the best parts of the movie and funniest parts of the movie to me was when in that movie It Came from Uranus, there's a scientist and his assistant woman.
Mhm.
And she's like, we have to blah, blah, blah. And the scientist slaps her across
Yeah,
the
yeah,
face. And he's like, get a hold of yourself, woman. You're hysterical. I was like, that's
We should write like a 50s monster movie from outer space. That would be so much fun to do, even just as a project. Even if we never make it, that would just be such a fun story to make.
This whole time watching this movie, before I get into any of my notes about it, I thought, oh my God, anyone can make a movie. Anyone can make a feature length film. Anyone can do it. And I was just thinking how funny it would be to, when I go visit you guys, when it happens, because it's happening, when it happens, we make a movie like that, like a like an old school black and white, horrible movie.
Oh my God, I'm so down. When you get excited about a new idea or project, that's all you think about. And it's just like you dive into this world that you're creating. And I was feeling that for this, wanting to make a cheap black and white 50s monster movie. And like we could totally do that. And that would be so great. I'm totally down. Let's do it. Challenge accepted.
Okay, we're doing it. Directed by Daniel DeSangre. We're just saying that, Daniel, right now. You're directing it. We already put you down for it.
Yeah.
Rewind to this movie, and we got carried away there, which I loved, and that was like my whole epiphany after watching this movie was what we just talked about. But before I get to that epiphany, we dive into it a little bit more. Let me just talk about the movie too. I have some notes here as well. I also really appreciated the 1950s vibe. As soon as the 1950s song happened, it was a stupid, funny song, but it actually sounded like it could be from the 50s. So I was like, oh, yeah, good for you. I love the 1950s. Then they threw in a definite, you know how movies do that, where it was like, oh, they throw the movies about mummies or the movies about, I don't know, quantum physics, and they throw in like the definition of it at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they threw in a definition of a voodoo type word for skunk, and the definition was the one who squirts. Now, before really knowing what this movie was going to be capable of, like I'm like, oh, it's on Tubi. I don't know if it's gonna be really graphic in ways. Who knows? I literally was watching that and I read that. I was like, oh no, oh no, oh no. But thankfully, it didn't go in a direction. I would rather it go in the direction it went than the direction I feared.
Yes.
So that freaked me out.
Okay.
The over the top 1950s lingo. Like this script, it was like they could have made it a little more organic, but you can tell they were trying so hard to make it sound like we're in the 50s, we're in the 50s, all these
Mm-hmm.
50s like slang and all this 50s stuff.
Any funny business and I'll feed you a knuckle sandwich.
Oh, Houston, get ready for liftoff.
So it was a little too much over the top. And then I'm like, are they bad actors or are they trying to be bad? Are they trying to act poorly and overact? Like sometimes you don't know, right?
You know what's funny? The only actor that I actually liked was such a stupid character. It was that deputy that was played by a woman trying to be a guy,
You feeling lucky, skunk?
and it had
You
like the
like that?
worst. Just because it was, it grabbed my attention. I'm like, this is so. Out of everybody there, like I couldn't even place where her accent was. It was like almost like a southern drawl.
Well, if you ever looking for a third, I got a lion tamer suit at home.
But it was just like weird. But she was just like trying to be like this overly macho deputy, and it was because I just looked up. All of a sudden, this character was there. I'm like, is this a new character? Who is this person? And then I'm like, oh, it's a girl playing a male deputy, and I'm like, that's kind of funny. But yeah, that was it. That was the only character I liked.
It was the same actress who played the mom of the Wereskunk.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you really weren't paying attention at a certain point. At a
You know what's
certain
funny?
point, it just
She looked the youngest out of
yeah.
everybody in the cast, and they just had her playing old people, and then they had old people playing young people.
Oh, I actually liked the artsy jazzy guy. Like I like that character. I thought his acting wasn't bad too. There's like this artsy poetic like
Why don't you mash me up a couple of G-dubs?
No,
yeah, I didn't
it
mind
wasn't bad, but it just didn't fit into it actually pulled me out of the world that they were building because it felt like 60s, even like borderline like 90s coffee shop type of slam poetry type of guy.
It's true. But what really kind of screwed up the eras even more was the fact that they threw Charles Manson in it.
Circus.
When they went to that shifty bar.
Solid, Manson.
So there actually were a couple, I have to admit, Kevin, there were a few moments in this movie that I actually laughed out loud for real.
The only laugh out loud part that I did during the movie was during It Came From Uranus. That
Yeah,
whole
that was
part, I
good.
was laughing so hard out loud, and especially during the smack.
Yeah, me too. That was, yeah, the smack stole the show. So the transformation scene, like you say, you described it perfectly. The makeup was hilarious. The wigs were funny, but the best part about the effects and the costumes, no, not the hands. It was the nose because the nose snout of the skunk was attached with the string.
I didn't even notice the strings.
And the strings were so apparent. Like, I don't know if it was like supposed to be apparent. That's the thing about this movie too. You're like, you don't know what's supposed to be funny and shown or like what you're supposed to take. I think the whole thing's just supposed to be a joke and laugh at everything. But it is like a legit from like a dollar store snout that they
Yeah.
have the strings over top of all the makeup. And there's one point in the movie where the wereskunk's getting up after eating some entrails, and he gets up and actor adjusts the snout.
My nose is falling off.
He's like, wait, but he actually they didn't cut and like reshoot it. Like, hey, maybe just don't touch the nose. He gets up and he's like, and then he
During the transformation scene when when
Oh.
they showed his hands, and then you could see the claws on there, but then he turns his hands around and the camera sees that it's just like a cloth glove that they put stuff on. And I was just like, oh my god, this is just so it was so bad. Actually, the best effect out of the entire movie was whenever he was farting his nasty gas. They must have used a
Yeah.
fog machine or something, and that was the only impressive thing about this movie.
What about the effect when he threw that ball at that girl at the pool and she exploded? Do you remember that?
She exploded. And then you see the mannequin leg fall into the pool. It was such an obvious mannequin leg. It even had like the little metal knob sticking out of it. Like that was funny. And I hate it when they try to do daytime scenes. Like obviously you don't have a lot of lights. So you're an indie production. But whenever I see like a monster scene happening during the day and it's just not scary, they didn't even try to make. One of your reviews said that it was the scariest horror comedy that they've ever seen. They didn't even try to like put scary music during any of the scenes or use any cool shots to allude to anything scary happening.
Oh, this is a straight up comedy. This is a straight comedy movie. There is no horror. There is no even the gore that's gore. It's not realistic. There's a part where a girl's eye's hanging out and they just paint her eye black. And you can just see it's her eye closed and it's weird dangly. Someone gets a black eye at one point and it's like a full line and a darker purple, then a pink line, then there's no
Yeah.
blending.
And then when
There's
he's ripping the guts out of somebody had guts on their stomach and you see him ripping it out. I'm like, oh, that actually looks kind of cool. But then he removes all the guts and you can see that there's no hole there. And it's just like they just put raw meat on their stomach. I was just like, all right. And another thing that angered me too is it didn't really anger me, but it's just like I was first impressed on their ability to try and build a 50s world because that
Mhm.
is very difficult to do. And then randomly in the movie they mentioned Harry Potter and the girl's like, the guy's name's Harry Potter. Come on, guys, Harry Potter, Hogwarts, Hermione. I'm just like,
You
they just stopped
clearly didn't.
trying.
No, did you see where that led to, Kevin?
Not really.
So let me help Kevin out. He was checked out. He was doing more productive things like doing artwork, so I don't blame you. Okay, so there's this one police officer woman, and for some reason she keeps making these like nowadays references. She's like, "Oh, look it up on Google search," and they're like,
Yeah,
"What's
yeah.
Google search?" And she's like, what? I don't know." And then they're like, she's like, "Oh, that guy Harry Potter. His name's Harold Potter. By the way, the guy who played Harold Potter, I think that was one of the funniest moments too, and his acting was the best. And he's living in a chicken coop and had all these
Yeah.
kids, and he coughs up a
Yeah.
cigarette. I don't know. You just got to see it. Samurai sword, just throwing a bunch of words
I
out that
remember
happened in
that
the movie.
scene. I'm like, another new
Yes,
character.
yes, right. But then she has a cell phone all of a sudden, this cop, and they're like, "What do you have a cell phone for?" Blah blah blah. And she's like, "I don't know what this is. It was just in my pocket." And then the wereskunk attacks her, rips off her arm, and she's a robot.
Oh yeah, I do remember the robot part.
So it's like she's a robot from the future or something. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, that's what it was.
Do you remember what the ending was?
I remember the larger cheerleader woman also became a skunk, and they ended up together. They were skunk boyfriend and girlfriend. And then there was a post credit too, wasn't there?
Yes.
There was a
Yes.
post credit. I forget exactly what the post credit was. But I remember I'm like, oh, there's more.
Okay, Kevin, then I need to know your overall thoughts and I need to know some ratings and I need to know I gave you something like that we could rate them on, but I don't know if you can do it on the spot.
Okay, so which rating would you like first?
Let's rate the acting in this movie. And are we doing it out of you said you wanted to do it from skunk to wolf?
Wolf being a 10, a skunk being 0.
Okay.
This was a dead skunk. And I will give the acting of It Came from Uranus. I will actually give that like an 8.
Okay. Okay, but
Mhm.
overall like the acting for the main movie is a roadkill skunk.
It was total roadkill, dude. Like It's one thing if you know that what you're doing is ridiculous. And I feel like when you're like that, like you take that acting seriously and it makes it even funnier. But for the fact that they were like so over the top and like it was like a play camp rehearsal of just people just like it was, you know what I mean? It was just so fake and just so over the top. Like I couldn't, I wasn't in it. Like the acting in the movie of the movie, like the It Came From Uranus. Those are actually funny characters. That was funny acting. I found that hilarious. That was the only time I was laughing out loud during the movie.
I wasn't expecting this animosity. Like I wasn't expecting this like anger for those. Like you're really taking it seriously. Like how dare you? Like, and
Yeah.
I think it's because you guys like make movies, and
Hmm.
you're like, how is this? And what I would have done. And like this is
It's one thing. I mean, like when you're in an indie film, you don't have a lot of money to put some flashy things in there, have really good production value. So that really does land on the shoulders of the actors. And
Mhm.
even if you're in a comedy that's I Was a Teenage Wereskunk, like you don't try to be funny. Take it if you take it seriously, that's going to be so much funnier. And at least that's my approach to it. It's just like I will never do a part, like especially if I'm performing and the idea is so ridiculous. I'm not going to be silly with. I mean, I'm a silly person, but I'm going to take the performance seriously because I feel like that's the best way to actually, draw them in. It's like the classic rule of filmmaking. If you get the people to care about the characters, you will believe any situation that they're put in. So that's
Mhm.
why I really do get in on the acting. I'm like, it's up to them. Like, make a good character, make your performance really good, and I'm gonna forget about how shitty everything else is.
Oh, this is more serious than I thought. I like this.
Well, hey,
Took me in a different direction. I kind of like it.
that's I don't know. That's just how my brain works.
This is catching me off guard, and I kind of like it. It's almost like you're spraying some skunk venom at me right now. I'm like, whoa, what is this?
Spraying
What?
some truth in your face.
The story. Rate the story from skunk to wolf somehow.
Skunk to wolf. I will give it a freshly washed skunk.
Okay.
Because you know what, like they did try to make a movie, and they did try to do a teenager, battling his sexual hormones and turning him into a wereskunk.
Don't think sexy.
But they didn't really do much other than that. There was the story. I still can't even tell you what was happening during the movie. What events were they doing? What were like the climaxes? What were like the stakes? I didn't really. I wasn't into that at all. So I will give it a freshly washed skunk, in that the freshly washed was the It Came From Uranus.
Yeah, I love your passion for that movie. It came from
You have
Uranus.
no idea how
I
much
thought you'd
I
enjoy.
can't stop thinking about that movie rather than this. That
Yeah.
was the most memorable part of this movie for me. I was in it. I always say that even in bad movies, there are good parts in bad movies.
Mhm.
That was the good part in that bad movie. And it angered me because I felt like if they just made that movie, it would have been done so much better than than I Was a Teenage Wereskunk. And that angers me. It's like imagine you're in a low budget indie, right? And all of a sudden you get the, the biggest actor in the world. Like, oh my god, there's so much, but you just make them a background character, like an extra. It's
Uh,
just like, oh man, like just do that. Just do that. That's what's grabbing my attention. That's the best part of the movie.
oh, you know what? Sorry, I should do after you do your ratings. I should do mine too. Let's go to the acting for a sec. I'm gonna rewind back to the acting. Give my
Okay.
rating for it. My rating for the acting probably would have been maybe like a single scent gland. Now, there, there were some real stinkers in this
Yeah.
movie, but then there was like a couple performances in this movie that I liked, like the man who played Harold Potter. I thought he
Yeah.
was really, really good. He had a really good bit too, and he lived in a chicken coop, and he had a good bit with all his sons and everything. It was kind of funny. He was really good. I guess that woman who played the wife and the cop, she gave it her all, even though I found her to be a little bit annoying and insufferable with her accent and her
Mhm.
overacting. She really gave it her all. She was dedicated. And then also the swanky like jazz cat guy, he wasn't bad too. So I'm going to give it a stinkland, one stinkland. And then for the story, I'm going to give it. You said a
A
freshly
freshly
washed
washed
skunk.
skunk.
I kind of like that. It's freshly washed skunk with a little bit of a poofy tail. The story is a funny concept. A skunk, what? But I wish they elaborated why the skunk was enchanted. Did it
Mhm.
come from Uranus? Maybe if the skunk somehow came from Uranus and we found that out, that would have been funny. Like a smelly skunk who enchanted people who came from the planet Uranus. Hello, like I feel like there was a missed opportunity there.
Yeah, I feel like they shoulda had it where it opened up on this skunk getting infected and then crawling through the town and then like trying to find this victim and then alluding to the guy
Yes,
walking home and then he encounters the skunk. There was no setup for it. The skunk was just there. You saw the skunk once and then he just like
yeah.
kind of popped up, sprayed and then like left and it's just like, well, what was special about him? Why is it that this one skunk can give somebody skunk powers? Like they didn't go into it at all. They didn't tease it. They should have teased it at the beginning.
They did miss that, and also you're saying how you didn't know what the stakes were. You find out near the end that the guy who's the wereskunk finds out that from a voodoo lady. Oh my god!
Shigongu, the one who squirts.
Every time he gets aroused, he sprays. So you think, oh my god, this guy will never be able to be in love, or he'll never be able to have any sort of sexual relations, and that's sad. That's stakes.
Yeah.
But right after you find that out, you find out that his girlfriend is also a skunk. You're like, okay, well, they can just be together and it's fine.
Well, let me add, you would care about it and feel bad for him if you liked the character, which I didn't. That
Yeah,
goes into
neither did
it. If
I.
you liked the character, you liked the acting, then you would have cared. I'm like, oh man, this guy's never gonna get laid. I feel so bad for him.
You could say that again.
But now I'm just like, man,
Yeah,
I hope he never gets laid. What I don't get is like how come like the spray, like another thing they could have done is like when he was spraying people, like why wasn't like acidic and all of a sudden like their faces start melting off and
yeah.
stuff like that? Why not? That's like they didn't push the envelope.
They clearly okay. That's then I think it has to do with my next question, Kevin. Why they wouldn't
Okay.
do a face melting acid skunk spray? How would you rate the effects?
Okay. Um, because I do like bad effects, but they didn't do it as much as I would want them to. Like if your effects are bad, you go for it. You make it look bad on purpose and do more of it as much as you can. So when they did have the effects, it made me laugh. So I will rate it a mangy dog. I'll give
Mm,
it from skunk to wolf. I'll give it a mangy dog.
okay, okay,
Because, like,
because it
the
was
actual
so bad.
spraying was impressive.
Oh no,
The transformation, at least they knew it wasn't gonna be good, but I felt like they could have, like, had better shots, built up more of the transformation instead of just standing there and freezing, and then, like, they put the stuff on them, and then, like, it just no, I wish that they did more of, like, and then like close up on the eyes, just like use what you have. You have like a good cinematographer, just make cooler shots and make use of that. But the effects that they had, I mean, like, dude, this is backyard movie stuff, which I love, and I actually have a lot of respect for that because it's very easy. It's hard putting your art out there and having people make fun of it. But when you do it knowing it's going to be made fun of, you have so much more fun with it. There's so many things that you could do with like severed heads and bodies exploding and like the guts. Um, like so some of those were okay for knowing that they were supposed to be bad. So I will give it a mangy dog because even though a dog's mangy, it's still little doggies. You know what I mean?
Mm, yeah. Oh. Perfect analogy. That's the perfect way to put it. And
Yeah.
that's the thing too, is like in my head, I kept wondering in this movie, is the acting supposed to be bad? Are the effects supposed to be this bad? Like, are they supposed to be? Is it funny? Are they like really like and that's what I don't know. But that's why I would think I would give okay, so the effects
You
with
can still have bad acting and still make it like engaging. That was
that's
not
true.
it.
Okay, good. This is how I'm going to rate the effects then. I'm going to rate the effects based on just what they were, not if they were trying to make them bad.
Okay.
And that to me, the effects are, even if they're trying to make them bad to be funny, the effects are definitely a roadkill skunk with a few tire treads on it. Like for sure. Like it is like it's been rotting in the heat and the highway in the desert and it's picked at by vultures and there's flies buzzing around. It keeps on getting run over by semi-truck trailers. And
Rigor
that is the
mortis is set
effects.
in.
Rigor mortis is definitely set in. This thing is pretty much a carcass at this point. So that is the effects for this movie. But I think it's intentional. But the real kicker for me that makes it such this skunk on the road carcass is definitely that nose that they had. The nose.
See
Snout.
I find that the way that you explain it, I actually find that funny. I like that. That's what's funny to me. But they should have still try to make it like film it scarier than what they did.
Mm,
Like if they
mm.
did that and they still had the ominous feeling, like, but you could see the strings like on the nose, that would make it funny to me because at least they attempt, like if you have bad effects, use your filmmaking skills to build that scary atmosphere and and then you won't necessarily care about the strings. You know it's there and it's funny, but at least they're trying to make it scary. That's the thing with horror comedy. The comedy has to be funny and the scary has to be scary.
Yeah.
It's a great polar opposite when you're pulling the audience both ways. You know what I mean?
You could say that again.
That's why I'm saying that I don't it's not a horror at all. They don't try with the horror aspect really. It's just a comedy. Like you say, this is how I don't know if it was if they made it funnier, like you say, if they showed him actually his transformation and they have that snout on the transformation, and then he like took the string and itched it and snapped it on his face or something, that would have been like hilarious. I would have been like, oh, so funny. But I'm like, are they serious with this nose? Like, are they being serious with this nose, or is this supposed to be like, I don't get it?
Like they didn't have glue, they had to use the string. Like that's what I'm saying. You had a makeup artist there.
Yes.
I believe the
Yes.
string was intentional. I think that was to
Okay.
add to their comedy because they could have just glued it on. They what did they
Mhm.
glue onto the gloves? You know, it's very it's very that's all cheap stuff to get. So like if you had the prosthetics, you could have just gotten the glue to go on. So I actually think that the string is a nice choice.
Okay, if you're looking for roadkill effects, this is the movie for you, and you can laugh
Okay.
at it, right? Now the next rating before our overall score is the artistic value, and that's like for me that's like cinematography, but also maybe I guess I guess theme and vibe. You know, like the 1950s theme. I would call that an artistic value, like the overall. Is that
Yeah.
count? Does that count? Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
so what?
Production value.
Yes, thank you. What do you give it for that?
Okay, I will. It's weird because they had it at the beginning, and then it just stopped. They
Mhm.
stopped trying to make the 50s. So I would say that it is a mangy dog that just got put down.
Wow, yeah. Okay. Mhm.
They killed the dog in production value sense. And you know what else is that kind of bothered me too is when I was watching it, like they had somebody who knew how to work a camera. They had set design, they had art people there, and I couldn't believe how flat the color looked too. Like when I was watching it,
Mhm.
I'm like, they didn't have anybody color it, like make it pop, make it feel a little bit warm. It felt like pretty flat.
Mm.
I'm like, if you're going for the 50s, this is something that they did in Back to the Future. When they filmed the 80s, the cinematographer Dean Cundy used like harsh lighting And then when they went back into the 50s, he used more warm, soft lighting to
Mhm.
bring back those warm, fuzzy feelings of like the 50s. And I just wish that they focused a little bit more on that in the post production of just color correcting and bringing some of that to life, because it looked pretty flat. Even some of the directing, like with the cameras, I mean, because they weren't bad cameras. The audio killed me. It sounded like they recorded all the audio in a bathroom. I mean, it was very echoey. They didn't do any post sound
Right.
work to make the audio sound really good. And even with some of like that opening scene of the on the Lover's Lane, kind of overlooking the valley, which was kind of I was starting to get impressed, but they didn't do too many camera setups. I wish they did more inside the car and just more dynamic angles in there. But they were probably limited. But so yeah, so I would say for the production, that's what you're asking me about, right? The production
Yeah.
value. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a mangy dog that just got put down on his last leg.
I know what you're saying about like the whole like look of it. I wish it felt, I was hoping that it was gonna have like a more 50s like vibe just by the aesthetic, like some sort of grain, maybe some sort of glow, some sort of like anything to make it like transport me visually back into the 50s
Yes.
other than just set and costumes.
Yeah.
I was hoping that like I say post production they would have did something with the actual look of the movie. 100%. I agree with that. I want to know what you rate this movie overall. Overall. I was a teenage wereskunk. What do you rate it
It's
overall?
like I don't even want to rate it as a skunk because that's what they were trying to be. Trying to think of another stinky animal that's not as cool as a skunk. I would say I rate it a Jameson fart after he got into some old lasagna.
Okay, and what does
My
that
dog,
smell
that's
like?
our dog Jameson.
What does that smell like after he gets? What does his fart smell like when he gets into old
Oh
lasagna?
my God. Like it is absolute death. It is death.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's below skunk. Jameson's like crappy lasagna farts after he gets into food he wasn't supposed to get into. That could peel paint off the walls, and that could make you want to claw, like just chop your nose off. So I will rate it. I will rate it uh a dead Jameson fart.
Okay, so you just no, you're not having it. You're not having this movie. You want to take a tomato sauce bath after
Actually, you
that
know
movie.
what? I
You need to
I
cleanse your.
will I will rate it one Uranus, because that was the only
Oh
redeeming
yeah.
part of this. I will rate it a skunked Uranus.
Okay, a skunk's Uranus.
Yeah,
Perfect.
that's
The
the only
perfect little
redeeming
bow.
quality of the movie.
I'm gonna rate it a badger, and the reason why I rated a badger is because it's another striped animal. They kind of look like a skunk, but I don't think they smell as bad as a skunk. I give it a badger because I genuinely laughed a few times. And
Okay.
I actually think that some of the comedy that they threw in was actually smart comedy, smart, stupid comedy. And I was like,
Hmm.
that's funny. Also, you sold me on that snout with the strings. Like I just it deserves a badger from me. It's just gonna be a badger.
It does. I mean, like,
I didn't loathe it. It wasn't
okay.
great, but I didn't loathe it because I actually thought parts were funny. But what I wanted to say is that if we got one thing out of this movie, and this is the silver lining of this whole movie, is and having you watch this one, I'm so glad that I did because it has inspired you to want to make a black and white, it came from Uranus style movie.
It actually inspired me. It really
Oh,
did. Like I did not expect to find inspiration for this movie to start a new project, but I did. So honestly, Marie, thank you for making me watch this. Because if not, I wouldn't have dove into this idea of like I said, as an artist, there's nothing like when you have an idea, all of a sudden it just engulfs everything in your brain. You have this excitement of something that you want to do. I have a new thing I want to do. I'm gonna think about it all the time. I'm gonna create this whole world in my head, and so thank you for bringing this into my life.
okay, that makes me want to cry.
Please
You're
don't cry.
welcome. See, so this was a success. I feel like this was a successful Tubi movie challenge, Kevin.
Hmm.
Do
It
you?
was, because you know what? It led to something else. So there's always a good thing about a bad movie, and that was sparking this idea that I've always wanted to do. And yeah, so like that was so much fun. Like I think that the idea of this segment is amazing. because I do love watching bad movies, and like it's such a great idea. It was so much fun to do. I made a whole day out of it. I cleaned up the room. I ordered food. I set it all up like a movie theater type of style in my room and everything. So it was a fun experience.
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad you're not like Marie. Curse you. I curse your name because
No, my
today.
God, I would do this every single time that you ask me to, because
Yes.
I don't care. Give me the bad movies. Let's watch some bad movies and have a good time watching bad movies.
I totally agree. I'm so happy. Thank you so much, Kevin, for doing this
Of
with me. I felt
course.
so bad. I felt so bad this morning when I started watching it. I text Kevin right away. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I text you that. I text you that right when the musical number started. I'm like, oh my God.
I was actually laughing during that because I actually had production value, and I'm like, I'll go on the ride, but is this going to happen throughout the whole movie? But there's only one musical number, and he was Elvis. It was like 70s Elvis too. It wasn't 50s Elvis. It was 70s Elvis.
The eras were all over the place. You know what? This movie had wereskunks. This movie had robots. This movie had female characters dressed as male cops, old timey 1920s guns. They had like Elvis. There was a lot in this movie. A lot. Kevin found a mangy dog and he's nursing him back to health and
Just don't fart on me.
no lasagna farts. Thank you for watching this episode and replays it all. This was the Tubi Movie Challenge with Kevin Lyons, my second victim of the segment. You can find more of our content on our YouTube channel, Not a Strong Start. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Not a Strong Start. You can listen to us anywhere you listen to your podcast. Please like and subscribe and share and comment and all that fun stuff. And you can follow me on Instagram at Marie Plays It All. Where can we find you, Kevin Lyons?
You can find me at Twin Pines Video, and you can also find another segment I do with my best friend called The Movie Stash. So at _movie stash, which we're taking live. So we're going to be doing a live comedy show of the Movie Stash, where it's going to be stand-up comedians and movie trivia. And our first show is February 21st at the Velvet Martini Lounge. So if you're in Studio City or Los Angeles area, it's a beautiful venue. It's really loungy and really cool. If you're around the Los Angeles area and want to see some good stand-up comedy and movie trivia, come on down to the Velvet Martini Lounge on February 21st. It's a Wednesday.
It sounds so velvety and loungy. It
It
sounds
is, and
very nice.
it's my return to stand-up comedy. I haven't done that in years, and Augustino convinced me to, open up the show with 5 minutes, and so I've been busy writing some jokes, and we'll just see where it goes. Yeah, I haven't performed in a long time.
Everyone, let me live vicariously through you and go watch it, please. Never stop playing. And what else? You know what? Never stop. If you have that drive inside you to make movies, to make anything, just like film anything, make something, be creative in any way, do it. Never stop. Because if these people can make I Was a Teenage Wereskunk and have it on Tubi, anyone can do anything. Okay.
You could say that again.
What about you, Kevin? Do you want to tell people to never stop doing something?
Just, never stop watching movies, even if they're bad. They're always fun, and even if there is a bad movie, there's something good to pull out of it. There is always something entertaining out of something bad. So one man's trash is another man's treasure. Go watch a movie and challenge yourself, just like Marie challenged me, which I will gladly do again. Like whenever you ask me to do this, I'm always down, Marie. So never stop watching movies.
And you're right, never stop, because you could pull something. If you're watching something that's not that great, you can always pull something really good out of it, and sometimes it's your anus.
It was a strap-on nose.